The kind of scenarios where having a pallet of food matters is pandemics. Right. If you get a global outbreak of some kind of evil flu, right? Want to hear a scary thing?
Yeah, hit me.
So London has a pandemic flu plan produced by the London Resilience Forum. It maxes out at a flu that kills 1 person in 50. If it kills more people than 1 in 50, it's not in that plan. Right?
Okay.
The organisms of threat right now, the things that the pandemic guys are really worried about, kill 2 in 3.
Okay. A bit like the movie Contagion.
A bit like the movie
1
Contagion.
in 3 or 1 in 4. It was
right?
Significant chunks of the population.
Really significant chunks of the population, right? So that's entirely scientifically credible. And, there are 2 kinds of threats.
Can you prepare for something like that?
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay.
Right? 2 kinds of threats. Threat number 1, the more you know, the less afraid you are. Threat kind 2, the more you know, the more afraid you are. Pandemic flu is type 2. The more knowledgeable people get, the more scared they are. In terms of preparing for it, all you can do is stay inside for a month.
Okay.
Right? You go outside.
Stay away from people.
Stay away from people. Stay indoors. Why? The flu is outside. It's not in your house. Sit in your house, eat your food, drink your canned water, wait. Right? The pandemic goes in waves. People are working on vaccines. The government will take months to get really to its feet with a response plan. So all you can do to stay alive in that situation is just stay the hell away from people and wait. And that's what you have your pallet of food for. It gives you the luxury of staying indoors and waiting.
Okay. And the gun?
The gun is just in case anybody else who doesn't have that luxury wants to come in.
Okay. Oh, who wants your food?
Yeah,
but
right?
in London, it's not legal to have handguns. But you're pro handgun because you think being able to defend yourself would have handled a lot more problems in the last century.
You could get an absolutely amazing crossbow, which is fully legal in the UK. You'd be stunned how good those things are. Modern materials technology, you're talking about half the muzzle energy of an AK-47.
Okay, crossbow. Great. You're here. You're here telling us we should buy crossbows.
Well,
fantastic.
Look, hunger, thirst, illness, injury, right? How do you prevent yourself getting injured? Put a spike in anybody that wants your food. So, with all of this kind of stuff, right? The critical thing to avoid is this feeling that the government will fix it for you. Right? In any really severe systemic crisis, they will be busy handling the places where it got really bad. Right? They will be looking for the very worst place. Everybody else will get neglected.
But the worst place probably will be central London, not necessarily.
Wow.
Okay.
I mean, look, central London, right? Centre of government, centre of the military, centre of the crown, right?
Probably gets attention.
Huge amounts of attention, right? The place where you'd be really afraid of being is like Manchester.
Okay. Yeah.
It could get so bad in Manchester under that scenario and nobody would come.
Okay.
Why? Because all the troops are garrisoning London.
Right.
What's happening up north? I don't know. Who cares? Nobody ever comes from there, do they? And government just moves right along.
So do you tell people to prepare themselves or educate themselves? Or what do you tell people?
Look, ready.gov, right? US government's risk management website says everybody should have a 3-day kit in their house, which will enable them to pick up their bag, walk out the front door, and not need anything for 3 days. That is the US government's advice to everybody, right? You know anybody with that bag?
Not even in the US.
Right. So start with the 3-day bag. That's government advice. That's not paranoia. That's the state's advice to everybody.
Okay.
And
that has food too? And
yeah.
Water or water tablets or purification tablets?
Pick up a bag, walk outside, 3 days, you don't need anything from anybody. Okay. The reason they keep advising people to do that is because in any kind of crisis, the last thing they want to be doing is worrying about ordinary civilians looking for food and water and all the rest of this kind of stuff. They want to be paying attention to the people that got their legs broken in the earthquake. They want to deal with the actual problem rather than the supply chain disruption. So everybody should have a 3-day kit, right? That's easy. Anybody can do that. Everybody should. And that's government advice. That's not paranoia.
Okay.
However, right, flip side of the coin, you mentioned the question of whether everybody should be armed. When the state goes bad, it's like dealing with your friend when he becomes schizophrenic, right? The state goes off its meds and decides that the problem is the Jews or the Gypsies or the Armenians or the dissidents. And now you have 2 problems, right? Because on one hand, you're relying on the state to protect you. And on the other hand, now the state has become your worst enemy.
Okay. That's a longer term problem. That's not necessarily a crisis problem.
Well, I mean, if it happens, it's a crisis, right?
Right.
I mean, you had, 20 something, I think the big killing starts in Russia. And it runs right through to about 1950. 30 years of gulags doing in on the order of 80 to 120 million people.
Yeah.
Bad things.
That's bad things.
That's